Which players for the Dallas Cowboys are entering make or break camps? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting the way we'd like them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. The Dallas Cowboys have their first practice in 2 days. So, Landon, today I thought we could talk about some players that are entering make or break years. Let's start with Sam Williams on defense. Going into year 3, why is this such a pivotal camp for Sam?
Yeah, I mean, because I think we've seen so much from him in flashes over the last 2 years, the different, big plays on both special teams and on defense. And he's also made big plays for the opposing team with some boneheaded mistakes at times, some personal fouls, some, and some of that was on special teams and kind of stuff that was being done as over aggressive and not necessarily so boneheaded. But we've also seen mental errors on the defensive side a little bit at times. And he's a very high variance player. And going into the season with the change in the defense, the rearrangement of the kind of the use of the defensive linemen and how they're going to be deployed. Obviously Dante Fowler and Armstrong are both kind of out of the door. So a lot of the onus of being that kind of second or third pass rushing weapon has fallen on Sam Williams, as it should. He was a second round pick a few years ago. He clearly has the pedigree to handle this. And I think he's shown you that he has the ability to kind of take on this role, step up and be a very good to potentially Pro Bowl player if he can kind of fit it all together. And I think that's the question this year is did he kind of take the offseason to kind of really focus, kind of get things together? And then especially, considering that we're moving into this Mike Zimmer defense and Zimmer puts such a premium on guys who are assignment sound. And that's clearly been one of Sam Williams' issues at times. So I think it really is going to be important for him to kind of really bear down and be focused on the defense and the details here. And if he can do that, he has a real opportunity in front of him and a really great roadway to earning a big contract, becoming a star in this league. I think he has the kind of physical talent and ability that he has the road laid out in front of him, but it's going to take him kind of being a more detail-oriented player to kind of unlock all of that, especially, like we said, with Zimmer being such a zealot for making sure that everything's done the way he wants it.
You called Sam Williams a high variance player. I think that's probably like the positive way to spin it. If you were to spin it in the negative way, you would say unreliable and inconsistent. And there's probably nothing that Mike Zimmer detests more than unreliable and inconsistent players. And that's why this is such a big camp for Sam. Is there's a massive opportunity right here with not only Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler leaving, but with the possibility of Micah Parsons just maybe playing some more off-ball linebacker. It's like a rush linebacker because he's going to be rushing, but you need other edge rushers. Again, this is why you draft Sam Williams in the second round, is because you believe by year 3, he should be able to be a starting edge rusher in the NFL. He hasn't been that to date. I think this is a huge training camp for him to earn the trust of the coaching staff and show, hey, I can lock down this spot if needed. I am the guy that should be the first off the bench whenever you move Micah around or whenever Tank has to come off the field. Like, the good thing is and again, Twitter is whatever, but it does seem like he's very excited for this opportunity. I saw him. He was talking about his body is ready. He's counting down the minutes to camp. But it's a grind, and it's going to be important that he's able to be consistent day in and day out.
Yeah, it's funny too because the expectations for him also have been high variance, I would say
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
right? Like, we kind of almost expected nothing from him his rookie year, and then he came out and really showed us a lot, and then the expectations rose a lot for his year 2. And I just think he kind of continued to be a little bit more inconsistent than we wanted last year, but still kind of showing you the talent. I mean, that's the thing about him too, is that the positive thing about Sam Williams is that you can tell that he's talented enough, right?
Oh,
He
yeah.
has the
That's
physical
it.
traits that he belongs in the NFL, that he has traits that are, elite, like that have, incredible speed and incredible strength. So that's not an issue. The issue is, harnessing all of that in a way that, like you said, is consistent. He's producing on a regular basis and not just this guy who shows up one game and has 2 sacks and a blocked punt and then doesn't do anything for 3 games. We would like to see more consistency, especially for a guy that eventually we're going to hope to see replace someone like DeMarcus Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, the time's running out, though. I mean,
yeah,
we're already
the
halfway
truth,
through his rookie deal.
and we're almost through to DeMarcus Lawrence's career, so
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think time is definitely running out, and this kind of really points to Sam Williams' situation where, it was a lot of, hey, we can be patient with this guy. We can be patient with this guy, but now that runway has run out, and now it's
Yeah.
time to start to show us the consistency and the production that is required to make you a starting defensive end in the NFL.
So I feel like Mike Zimmer could either be the best coach for Sam Williams or the worst, because the positive is, like, Sam needs to be more consistent and needs to learn maybe the finer details of being a full-time player. And I think Zimmer's going to try to install that, and he's going to harp on that, right? At the same time, if he doesn't get it, I mean, I could see a situation where Sam Williams is just in Mike Zimmer's doghouse
Yeah.
and just doesn't play, right? And all of a sudden, we're doing a podcast about Sam Williams being on the 3rd-team pass rushers, and there's random guys that they signed as undrafted rookie free agents that are playing ahead of him. So that's why it's such a big training camp for him, because I think the number of potential outcomes here is, I mean, I think there are a lot.
Yeah, I mean, as wide as the variety of his play, or is the wide as the variety as the outcomes that he has this season, right? I mean, I think he could go. Like I said, he could have an incredible season and be in Pro Bowl talk if because he has that kind of ability, or he could be a guy like you said that is, not playable, not an active game day roster guy, a guy that they actively would be looking to trade. I would assume if he really was in Zimmer's too much doghouse, that just because to try to get something from him before his rookie contract runs out. So yeah, I think the spectrum of outcomes that for this guy this year are as wide as almost anybody on the team, just because we've seen the highs and the lows with him, and they have quite a bit of distance between them.
All right, let's talk about an offensive lineman that needs to show out during training camp. Let's discuss Terence Steele next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking at LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Are you having to turn down the volume because of all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that unnecessary screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, we are back here discussing three veterans, sort of veterans, that need to have big training camps. And let's go to Terence Steele, who tore his ACL, MCL, had that massive knee injury in 2022, didn't miss a training camp practice last year, had a rough start to the year, got better. What does he need to show you here, Landon, this year in training camp?
Just more of a return to form to the guy that we knew before the injury, right? Like, he came in last year, they signed a huge deal, which was great for him. I mean, look, just to kind of 10,000 foot view Terence Steele real quick, undrafted free agent out of Texas Tech, really was to say that he was a long shot is kind. Comes in due to a whole bunch of injuries, during his rookie year, was thrown into the fire, really struggled to keep his head above water, comes back his next year and is just a different player, just looks like much more efficient, stronger, really took the offseason to kind of really get right, has become one of the off-season workout leaders in this team, just consistently one of the hardest working guys on the team. Got it. Like I said, got a big contract, unfortunately tore an ACL. And so, let's rewind all the way back up to this point last year, right? We're hoping that we can get into training camp and that Terence Steele isn't going to miss too much time. He worked so hard that he actually ended up not missing really any time in training camp, which was incredible. And then to get all the way through training camp into the regular season was an incredible effort. I think that's something that was a goal of his that he accomplished incredibly well. Now, the problem there is that it really felt like, he crossed the finish line, but he didn't quite hit the goal that he wanted, right? Like, he was able to make it to the regular season and play in the first part of the regular season, but he really was not the same player that he was the year before. And he really was a detriment to the team in a lot of ways, I would say, for the first month of the season, at the very least. And then even after that, up until probably the end of the season, was, I would say, replacement level, like certainly not living up to the standard that Terence normally had. And you combine that aspect with the injury that Zach Martin got a little bit later on in the year, and what used to be an absolutely dominant part of the offensive line, that right side, specifically in run blocking, suddenly kind of had completely lost its teeth. So, obviously Zach is healthy, back from his stuff, but more important than that, we need to see Terence Steele kind of, now that he had a healthy offseason, he's another full year removed from the injury. We really do need to see Terence Steele return to form, because we've kind of talked about all the other aspects of this offensive line, right? We've talked about the center of the battle that's going to happen. Obviously, left guard is going to be locked down by Tyler Smith now that we've figured out the draft stuff. Guyton and the left tackle is a whole conversation that we've been talking about throughout this whole time. And we've sort of just kind of, waved our hands on the Terence Steele situation, hoping that he will be back closer to the form that we're used to. But I think that that's not a given. And I also think that we need to see Terence kind of playing with a level of confidence that he had pre-injury. And because I do believe that he is a good player, and I do believe he's worth that contract if he can get back to that level. But it's going to be a very important training camp for Terence to make sure that he kind of gets things back tightened to where they were, and kind of getting back into the flow of being the sort of dominant run blocking right tackle that we're used to with his sort of game.
And I want to see him be better against better competition, because last year there were a couple games, like even early in the year, when they just didn't play great edge rushers, like the Patriots game. He looked good. Only gave up 2 pressures in that game. It's, again, some of these other games where you're just winning against lackluster competition, he looked fine. Here, 3 of his really poor games at the beginning of the year. Against the Jets, he gave up 7 pressures in that game. He had a pass blocking grade of 19. Against the 49ers, he gave up 8 pressures and 8 quarterback hits. He had a pass block grade of 8.4. Against the Eagles that first time around, 12 pressures allowed, 7 QB hits, 4 sacks, pass blocking grade of 15. Now, it did get a little bit better as the year went on, but there's still too many games where he got matched up against a better than average pass rusher and struggled. When you're going to have a rookie left tackle, probably,
Yeah.
you can't afford to have your right tackle also need to get help. And unfortunately, we talked about this early season schedule of the pass rushers they're going to face: TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, all the different guys the Ravens will throw at you. Like, you're going to have to be able to block some really, really good players. So is Terence Steele back to being an average pass blocker? If that's the case, if he's only an average pass blocker, you're probably not getting your money's worth on the contract. If he can be okay or above average, it's fine. But I want to see him get back to where he was, in the first 10 weeks of 2022 before the injury, because he was awesome that season.
Yeah, and I think this important point that you kind of pointed out there is that those groups that you mentioned, the TJ Watt, Garrett's, the Ravens, it's not one pass rusher,
No.
right? They're obviously those are the headliners, but each one of those teams have multiple pass rushers to deploy at you. So it's not like you're going to be safe even if you figure out one side, of the pass rush. You need Terence Steele to be a solid pass blocker, because there's just going to be times when he's going to have to be left out on an island because help is going to be sliding the other direction. Right. It's going to be.
I'm looking at the Texans game. They're going to play Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Your help is going to go to your rookie left tackle. So you better be able to. I mean, you're not going to stop a Willie Anderson, but you better make it where he's not ruining the game.
Yeah, exactly. And that's and again, the switch is twofold, right? You're trying to get healthy, you're trying to get better, but now also you're switching from being the guy that got most of the help when you had Terence Smith locking down the left side, to the guy that is going to be providing the opportunity to help somebody else. You're going to be the one that's going to be the more isolated of the two tackles. So Terence Steele is without a doubt a guy that I would put my money on to, work his way into whatever scenario he needs. So hard work is not going to be a problem with this guy.
No.
It's going to be more about, is he feeling confident in his knee? Is his change of direction back to where it was previously in 2022? Those are the things that I'm excited to see when training camp opens in a couple days.
The good news for Terence Steele is he's going to have plenty of good challengers in training camp, whether it's Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, hopefully Sam Williams, Marshawn Nealon, a second-round pick. So I think we should have a pretty good idea of where Terence Steele is at after a couple weeks into the training camp, into preseason, once we get some live hitting and some live reps. So excited to see what Terence Steele looks like a full year removed from his pretty gruesome knee injury. All right, let's talk about Mazi Smith, who might be one of the most important players at Dallas Cowboys training camp this year. Let's discuss his development next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Listen, I love sports. There's nothing more than I love than sitting on my couch after a long day, turning on a couple TVs, watching a baseball game, watching some Olympic basketball. It's absolutely the best. But unfortunately, with the NBA playoffs over and now the NHL playoffs over, we just have fewer and fewer games that are on TV that we get to watch night in and night out. And the sports just aren't sporting the way we'd like them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So just head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Everydayers, on tomorrow's show, we'll take a look at 3 young players that we are excited to watch, and that's going to include Kalen Carson, the Cowboys' 5th-round pick from Wake Forest, how he fits into Mike Zimmer's defense. So make sure you tune in for that. But later, let's finish up here talking about Mazi Smith, who technically could be on tomorrow's show, but we're putting him on today's show. I feel like personally, he's one of the biggest people, or he is one of the biggest people, one of the most important players in the Cowboys to watch during training camp, because I feel like a lot of their potential success on defense relies on his development. What do you think?
Here's the thing, like, we've talked about Mazi a lot this offseason. When we were coming up with this list of guys to discuss, there's just no way to make this list without including
Yeah.
Mazi, right? Like Mazi is the ultimate example of this situation, right? Because, and it's not even just make or break for his career. In a lot of ways, it's make or break for the Cowboys this season, right? Because they are reliant on a situation which I don't know that is necessarily reliable, and so. It is fascinating to kind of see, and then I think you add in the fact that we've basically heard nothing about Mazi. I mean, he basically went back to Michigan to go work out, which is not necessarily a good or bad thing. Michigan is obviously well known for having an incredible weight room, and he
Yep.
clearly got very strong while he was there in Michigan. So, but it does add a level of intrigue, right? Because he's outside of the eyes of most of the guys that we get, information from. Look, I mean, I think clearly his draft status, him being at a position where the Cowboys still have a very strong need, and then just the fact that there's a shoulder injury that may have altered or prevented his ability to kind of develop in the offseason, the fact that he needs to add like a whole bunch of weight to kind of get back to a size that is more appropriate for this defense. And then there's positives too, right? Like the positive, I think, influence that Zimmer is going to have on Mazi. I think because of the way the defense is similar to what he's used to playing. I don't know if you saw, but they had media day not too long ago at Frisco, and he was one of the guys that they had done a little bit of an interview with him. And when they asked him, and this is all on DallasCowboys.com, so go check it out. And they asked him, like, what, are you excited about Zimmer's defense? Something to that extent of like, what do you think about Zimmer's new defense? Or, that was basically the question. And you could see him light up. Like you could see him be excited about, this is getting back to what I know. And so there are positive and negative aspects of about this that are kind of all swirling around a bunch of unknown. And yeah, you add in the fact that he's playing a position in which this defense really is going to be reliant on. We basically have zero idea how he's going to play this position, like how well he will play it, what form he's in. There's just so much to know or to learn about this Mazi situation that we just have no information on. And obviously adding in the fact that how important he is to this defense, the pedigree of his draft pick. It's just there's a lot to be excited or interested in. And so I think there's going to be a bunch of eyeballs on him early on in camp just to kind of see, where are we with this kid? Is this guy even a playable player at this point? Is he a starter? Is he 325 pounds? Is he 287 pounds? I have no idea anymore. So I think just getting an opportunity to get eyes on him, see how he's moving. Is he even back from the surgery yet? Like,
That was going to be another point. Is like, is he on? No, we haven't heard anything. Is he on the PUP list? Like, is he going to be ready for the first couple of weeks of training camp? Again, I haven't heard anything. I would assume that he's going to be ready to go. If he is, I think that's great news. Is he limited? Do they have to scale back his work? I just think there's a lot of unknowns about Mazi that I think are going to be answered over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
I was trying to think about it. This offseason has been so consumed by the Dak,
The contract stuff.
Micah contract stuff. I was trying to think about it. Has there been, when was the last time we had such kind of a pivotal player to the Cowboys' success that we had so little information on? Right, especially nowadays, right? Like everyone's on social media and everyone, but like I have not. Before that interview with Mazi on the mothership, I had not heard anything about him. I had not seen him on Instagram or anything like that. So it really is like the most kind of unknown for a guy that, like I said, is literally and figuratively at the center of your defense's success. So I think just kind of seeing all of those things, like the PUP aspect, what he looks like, how's he playing? I mean, there's so much to learn about Mazi Smith since we've last seen him that it's almost head spinning. You could almost do a whole practice just watching him and kind of getting information that you feel like you've missed over the last 3 months.
You know what's going to be funny though about Mazi is like the very first day that they walk down the hill onto the practice field, we're going to learn a lot about Mazi. Like, and I know
Yeah.
this is really strange, but like you and the rest of the really knowledgeable Cowboy fans that are there will be able to see like, oh, Mazi looks big. Oh man, Mazi looks skinny. Mazi's got a big wrap on his shoulder. Like, it's weird that like that experience or that view is going to tell us so much about where he is going into training camp.
It kind of reminds It kind of reminds me of when we were on Zeke Watch, we were on, oh, Zeke looks a little bit heavy today.
Yeah,
No, no, no,
who would
no.
ever do that?
I don't
I have
know who
no
would
idea.
ever do that, but it feels a lot like when someone was doing that.
Who would ever do that about DeMarcus Lawrence or Tony Romo running out to the
man.
field? I can't.
So the Tony
imagine.
Romo one, listen, what we need to do is get whoever got that shot of Tony
John
Romo. I think
Machota.
it was Machota. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need Machota to get that same angle on Mazi so they can add a couple of extra pounds to Mazi, make us feel a little bit better about that situation, no matter how much he weighs, right?
Yeah, I mean, but you're right. I mean, this is a very pivotal player that we really just don't know hardly anything about. We got a report like back in was it maybe March or April that he had to have shoulder surgery. Like, we didn't even know that he had shoulder surgery. We had no idea what the timeline was. We haven't heard really any update on where he's at or where his weight is at. And frankly, we didn't really have any update of where his weight was at by the end of last year. We just heard
we never heard
whispers.
officially who told him to lose or gain the weight. It's like it's a whole bunch of people all pointing the different directions. Like that's what's so mysterious about it, is that even the answers it feels like we've gotten about Mazi have been cagey and incorrect. So it's like there's just a lot of, I imagine Mazi like with like mist all around him constantly. He's like this mysterious figure that no one can kind of quite grasp or figure out exactly. Oh, I think he weighs 280 pounds. Oh, I think he weighs 320 pounds. And it's like, it's hard. He is a man of mystery at this point for Cowboys fans.
Again, I think we'll learn a lot about Mazi over the next few weeks, so that's going to be really exciting. It's also going to be exciting to talk about some young players on tomorrow's podcast, so make sure that you're downloading the Locked On Cowboys podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. You can follow the show on YouTube as well, Locked On Cowboys over there. Go follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.